Quick video discussing the concept of women as emotional and men as being rational and not emotional. Um, it's important to realize the colloquial definition of emotion in this context is emotions have to do with hurt and sadness, both personal hurt and sadness and compassion for others, which is hurt and sadness directed outward. Um, this is specifically the emotion that is not manly that men and shouldn't have. And you see this a lot in MAGA and the elites of MAGA. Their fanatical psychopath levels of sexism. This is common to all elites of the Illuminati. Their number one thing is sexism. These people, like I heard it once said that extreme Islam is psychopathically sexist. Perhaps so, but the Western Illuminati and our billionaires are also psychopathically sexist. Sexist to a point that it clouds their thinking the way a mental illness might. Like sexism is like they kind of get away with this, like de-emphasizing sexism. But it's like their number one mental disorder, and very closely related is the idea of emotions have to do with hurt being the worst thing possible. And the more masculine expression of hurt is anger. Anger is considered valid because with anger you can take power, but with hurt you can only either sulk or help. Those are the two options when you're letting yourself experience hurt and pain. But if you're experiencing anger, you can take and crush, right? And this is exactly why we see this emphasis on um, women as emotion. What's really saying is women are passionate, women are hurt and sad and allowed to be so, and that's a weakness. And we, like I said, see this with the psychopathic levels of sexism in MAGA, and Elon Musk openly saying things like the West has toxic empathy. What he's really saying is the West is feminized. That's really what he's saying. When these people talk toxic empathy, they're talking about empathy at all. They're talking about doing anything for any reason but transactional for your own power. Elon Musk lives his life and has his whole life seeing the world as a chess game where every move he makes is going to get him more power in the future. Feeling nothing, feeling no empathy or compassion, faking it, miming it to manipulate progressives when he wants to make headway into the Obama administration to get welfare and to rub elbows with the California lefties and tech he wants to manipulate. Fake it, but never really feeling it, and only being capable of anger to motivate him to crush and dominate 10, 20, 30 years in the future. And in his opinion, the West has toxic empathy, which is code for being feminized and pussy. So when a lot of women actually accurately point out men say they're not emotional, but then they shoot people in cold blood and call them fucking bitches. They're not against passion, like the concept of emotion as being motivated to something. They're very in favor of more masculine passions like destroying your enemies, impulsively going with violence to save your name and achieve your goals. So it's not that they're against the concept of passions, emotions as passions. When you need to analyze and break it down, they're against compassion, they're against hurt, they're against letting yourself feel hurt for yourself and for others that would naturally lead to being compassionate or understanding. They're very in favor of people who are almost psychopathic in the degrees to which they can hallucinate anger and act on anger in violence and abuse. A super hyper masculine thug like behavior is very okay with because they're not against passions. Don't let them confuse you with, oh, we're into logic. They're not into logic. They're into behaviors that benefit sequestering more and more power and crushing and belittling and humiliating, right? So if you think the issue is they may lie to themselves and say that they are logical, but they're actually in favor of anything that gets power. So if it's weird prison rapist passion where like he felt his image was being insulted, so he decided to rape a guy and turn him into a bitch, or if it's a logical move, it's both are work for them. So the thing that doesn't is a more passive state of being hurt for yourself and for others that you can't and have not channeled into something that can be destructive to gain power. I hope that helps. They're really against the idea of compassion, right? Because compassion is antithetical to sequestering power. Compassion, understanding, reflectiveness, empathy, these are womanly and toxic effect of the West. That it's too bitch-like and feminized. Women have too many inputs. And that's why they have to ban reproductive controls. So more women just get absorbed to the MAGA will of their husbands. They have no financial freedom and no reproductive control. And they, in turn, control the MAGA stud, who is completely a pawn, delusionally seeing himself in these billionaires while they rob him blind and show him as a slave. And that's why they're doing everything they're doing. They're the thing that acts like water on the wicked witch of the West to them is compassion and empathy. And they will promote, uplift anyone, whether they're cold and use logic or they're Tommy from Goodfellas, passionate in male violent anger and saving name. As long as they're oriented to getting power and not having compassion for anybody, you're cool. The thing they really, really hate when they talk about women's emotions is compassion and sitting with the state of being hurt without aggression or anger.